My name is Joseph Leopold, and I am here with a Palestinian citizen, Dylan Yerome. Dylan, being from Palestine, is it difficult to attend Syracuse currently while the conflict occurs at home?
I don't find it to be that difficult because there are certain groups on campus that mend both sides, and I don't find our campus to be like severely political in any way.
Right. Do you feel that Palestinians are well represented on campus as much so as Israelis?
I think they are. I think there are a good amount of pro-Israel groups, but I think that the dialogue is definitely there between the two, and they definitely are able to talk with each other and talk about it in like a way that is not so hostile.
Right. So you think that although in previous interviews I've noted that the demographic of Syracuse is a lot of Jewish people that go here, you don't think that has a direct effect on whether or not it's pro-Israel or pro-Palestine?
I think that a lot of the students aren't super aware of the conflict on campus. And I guess on a basis level, like on a very shallow level, most students would say possibly that they're pro-Israel because they don't know a lot about the conflict. But I think that overall, people don't even realize that the school, although is more Jewish than most other schools, a big percentage of it's still a small percentage of the
Right,
school.
of course.
And I think that possibly because the people aren't as educated, that could be true. But overall, I don't know if that actually is the case.
Right, of course. And what better ways do you think there could be to possibly foster some Palestinian representation on campus?
By promoting more clubs, possibly having more events, and I guess using social media to develop their message.
And going on, I guess, sort of about social media, because that could possibly be your answer. Where do you hear your primary news, I guess, about the conflict going on back home while you're here?
I use CNN a lot. I'll watch the news on CNN, and I go on their website. I use a lot of different sources. I also use social media as well, and I essentially just like I like to take from different places because I like to get a full rounded view. But that's my favorite source, I would say, CNN.
And do you feel that any of these news sources are particularly biased in any way?
I would definitely say so. I would definitely say like that the different networks kind of push their own political views, and people tend to say that CNN is more pro-Palestine, whereas Fox News, for example, is more pro-Israel.
And do you feel that most people are knowledgeable about these biases in news networks when learning and becoming knowledgeable about the Middle Eastern conflict?
I think that people, yeah, I don't think people are actually aware that there really is a bias between the stations. I think that you have to have more of an in-depth understanding because it's very, very hard to understand, like to see like the different ideologies because they'll just show like certain clips and certain things. So like the average person wouldn't really know that that in itself is biased.
And you kind of touched upon this, but do you feel that Syracuse students are knowledgeable about the Middle Eastern conflict?
I think overall as a campus, we're not a very political campus, and I think that people really are not so knowledgeable about the conflict really at all, as I previously stated. And as other campuses are super political, they'll have like pro-Palestine events, they'll have pro-Israel events. We don't really see a lot of that on this campus.
And do you ever see any misinformation on social media, people posting about Palestine or Israel, and you disagree with it because...
I 100% believe so. I mean, I think that the conflict in itself is a very intense conflict where the views are, people feel very, very strongly about each view. So when I see something posted on social media that I disagree with, especially because, like I said, people are not really knowledgeable about the conflict, to me, it really bothers me because I know what is right from what is wrong, whereas these people are just posting it, not really knowing what they're saying.
And would you ever consider joining a Palestinian club to spread Palestinian ideals or what you feel is factually correct on the Syracuse campus?
If my time allows for it, I would definitely say I would consider doing it because I am in a Middle Eastern Studies class and I do enjoy discussing the topic and it's something I'm very interested in. So if my time allowed for it, yes, I would consider it.
So you seem very knowledgeable and you just said you take a Middle Eastern Studies class. Personally, I guess, why do you believe Palestine is correct in this conflict? It obviously is a very complicated issue.
I think that from the Palestinian perspective, when the Jews were given the country after the Holocaust by the British Mandate, in 1948, I think that like to them it was essentially like from the other perspective that they were that their land was taken away from them. And although
Right.
the Jews possibly deserved that land, especially after what happened with the Holocaust and their narrative, I think that from the perspective of the Palestinians, they were basically overrun and they were like taken out of their own homeland,
Right.
and that cuts deep.
Just because one thing happens that needs to be
And I think that people
made
have to
up
understand
for.
that there are two perspectives, and that like, there has to be an open dialogue so we're able to see each perspective, which would help the conflict in itself, so we can maybe possibly attain peace. But there really has to be an understanding that that us as Palestinians, we feel that our country was taken away from us.
Right. And having a strong sense of Palestinian pride on campus, do you ever note tensions between Israeli students and Palestinian students, possibly in times of crisis?
I haven't really noticed that in my Middle Eastern Studies class. We discuss these issues like in a very open way without hostility, which is like a very hard thing to do in regards to this conflict. And there are Palestinians and there are as well as Israelis, and we're able to kind of discuss all these really heated issues in a way that it doesn't feel like there's like very intense animosity towards one another.
And do you think that's attributed to the distance from actual Palestine and Israel?
I think that has a lot to do with it with certain students, but there are a lot of students that are part of these clubs. That there's actually a club where there's the Israelis and the Palestinians, and they work together just to promote the idea and not to promote each side. And some of those students are in my class, and I think that in itself is like that just shows a lot.
And finally, just wondering, do you think it would be beneficial for students not from Palestine, students not from Israel, just even if your major is not in political science, to learn and study about the conflict going on in the Middle East right now?
I think 100% just because it's current events. Everyone should be knowledgeable of what's going on in the world today, because it's just very important to know that as a human being, as someone in society, and as someone who is now not a kid and not a teenager, and just in all facets of your life, you don't want to be unknowledgeable of what's going on today.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.